familiar with my channel, you know I love kombucha. If you're not familiar with my channel, welcome. My goal is by the end of this video, you'll have all the information you need to start from scratch and start enjoying the benefits of kombucha at home after you learn how simple it is. It just takes a few ingredients, so we're gonna go all the way from starting with nothing to growing your SCOBY, brewing a batch of kombucha, and going through a secondary fermentation and flavoring your kombucha. And then you'll see how simple all of this is and how cost effective. Because if you love kombucha and you buy it at the store, you know that a simple bottle of kombucha can cost around $4. But to make an entire batch of kombucha, having several gallons, it probably comes out to about 30 to 40 cents for the same serving size. So literally cuts your cost by a factor of 10. So what you need is a few simple ingredients to get started. We're gonna start really simple with one bottle of kombucha that's already been made and bought from the store. I like to use yerba mate for my kombucha. You can use black tea, green tea, white tea, anything with a caffeine source for the tannins. But I prefer to use yerba mate or guayasa. Those are from the Amazon, and those two particular herbs depend on protecting the Amazon rainforest because they have to be shade grown. Versus your white, green, and black tea, those are grown by monocropping, clear cutting land, and then planting one crop. So it kind of adds to deforestation, whereas yerba mate and guayasa protect the rainforest. So I'm all about that. So what I've done is taken a heaping tablespoon of the yerba mate and put that in here. We're gonna add a quarter of a cup of sugar to get started. We're gonna put that in here. And I put the sugar in with the tea or with the water when it's heating, so that way it dissolves already and you don't have to mix it afterwards. And then I've already heated up the water. So this is just a quart of water to get started. Right. And then basically just like you would with tea, you're just gonna let that sit for a few minutes. I'm gonna give this a little mix of that. And the hot water will basically dissolve the sugar instantly. So we'll just let that go and sit for a few minutes and do its thing. Then all you need after that is a jar that you're gonna let your SCOBY grow in. Now this isn't what I actually brew kombucha in. I'm gonna show you that. I'm gonna teach you a whole process of how to always have kombucha ready. But for growing the SCOBY, we're gonna start with this because what we're gonna create here is gonna turn out to be more like a vinegar after the SCOBY's ready. So you're not really gonna wanna drink all of this. So that's why you just use a small amount of tea to start. And I looked on the shelves when I was getting this to try to find one that had the most floaty stuff in it because that's the leftover SCOBY that got into the bottle and that's what we're gonna be growing. So this one had a pretty nice one down in there. So we're just gonna add this to the jar here. And we're gonna let our tea cool down, and then we're gonna add that. Okay, so now that that's cooled down, pulled all the minerals out of the mate, all the iron and chromium and niacin that mate is very high in, we're just gonna add this right into the bottle of kombucha. So all you've got so far is the sweet tea and the kombucha that you got from the store in the bottle. That's gonna go in there. And you're pretty much done with this part. You just want to find some kind of a large jar for this to open up and breathe in. And then you want to cover it with something just so nothing gets down inside. You just use a wash rag or a cloth or a cheesecloth. You're going to put a rubber band over it so that nothing gets inside of there. And then you just want to set this somewhere, not in direct sunlight, either in your closet or I'm just going to put it back on the counter here, just in the back corner away from the window so it's not sitting in the sunshine. And you're just going to watch it because slowly but surely you're going to start to see a lot of little things start to grow and develop. And then over the course of 1 to 2 weeks, you should see the SCOBY start to form. So I'll give you an update and we'll check back in there. I'll see you then. Bottle of kombucha, a little bit of tea, and a little bit of sugar, and now you've got yourself your own SCOBY, and you're ready to move on to the next step, which is brewing in a larger batch. So you're going to want to find yourself something that you want to brew in. It can be something like this that's about a gallon size if you just want to do small amounts. I like to do larger amounts, so that way I always have some in the fridge and I always have some brewing. So I use this ceramic crock that's got a spout on it. They make these as well in glass. I would recommend using either glass or ceramic. That's the best way to go. And I see them all the time at places like Ross and TJ Maxx. They're not expensive, so just find yourself something that's a couple of gallons. That way you're not waiting in between and you don't drink it all, because like I said, you're gonna need about 2 weeks. So you wanna be able to brew about 2 weeks worth to have on you, so that way by the time the next batch is ready, you just get that cycle going. You've always got fresh kombucha and you always have it ready. So now that we're going to move on to the next step, it's really simple. You're kind of just repeating the last step in a larger scale. So I'm going to use yerba mate as the tea base. I'm going to put in some horsetail, which is really high in silica, really good for the skin. And I'm going to do some ginger in the preliminary brew. You can use a lot of different herbs, and you can look back at some of my other videos and see that I've done hibiscus, I like chai a lot. You can really get creative and play around with the flavors. The only thing you don't want to use in the first brew is anything that's antibacterial or antifungal. So you don't want to use any cat's claw, you don't want to use any Pau d'Arco, anything like that, because that will kill your SCOBY. We don't want to do that. So we're just going to stay with some really simple ratios. It's really easy. It's just for every 1 gallon of tea, you want to use 1 cup of sugar. So just 1 and 1. That's really simple. And then if you're using tea bags, just follow the directions on the tea bags. It's usually 5 or 6 tea bags for a gallon of tea. If you're using loose leaf, that generally equates to a couple tablespoons of tea per gallon. And that's really it. So we're going to get that going, and then I'll see you when the tea's done. Once you've got your tea done and you're all set to start the fermenting process again, you're going to want to save some of the mixture from the batch that you made to grow your SCOBY to bring down the pH balance, because you're going to want it to be a little bit acidic in there. So with each batch that you brew, you always want to save a little bit of the kombucha from the previous batch to keep in there to keep the pH down. So for each gallon, I generally do about a cup of the previous batch. So since I'm going to do about 2.5 gallons in this container, I'm going to do 2.5 cups of the mixture to bring down the pH. And then the rest of this mixture, if you smell it, it kind of smells like vinegar. So I wouldn't recommend drinking it, but you can use it like you use vinegar. So if you wanted to do like a shot of it before you ate to help with your digestion, or it's actually really good for dry scalp. You can rinse your scalp with it. Anything that you would do with apple cider vinegar, you could do with this as well. And then the very last step is to take your SCOBY, and you always want to have really clean hands when you're handling your SCOBY, because you are dealing with bacteria. You don't want to introduce anything dangerous into your brew. So you just take your SCOBY that you made and you drop that right down in the jug. And then just like last time, we just wait. Okay, so we're we're 7 days into the fermentation process inside of the large container, which is where you can start to have a lot of fun and play around if you want to. This is where you can do what's called a secondary fermentation. So when you go to the store and you see these kombuchas that are blueberry and pomegranate and guava and mango, this is when you can start to incorporate all of that. Now, if you just wanted to do one large batch of a flavor, then you could do it all inside this container. But if you want to vary it up and try a few different things, you can use these, which I found. GT's now makes 48-ounce bottles for kombucha. So I'm going to use 2 of these and do 2 different flavors. I'm going to do pomegranate and orange. So the way you want to do this is with this 48-ounce bottle, you want to leave a little bit of room to breathe at the top because it will bubble up. And then you want to do about 70 to 90% of the rest of the bottle kombucha, depending on how you want it to taste. But you want that at least that 70%. So inside of this, I put about 8 ounces of orange juice. And then we're just going to fill the rest up from the spout here with kombucha. And then you're going to do the same thing that you've been doing. You're going to put the lid on it, and then you're going to let it sit for another 4 to 7 days. So at day 7, that's when you really want to start tasting your kombucha and see what you've got. So we've got that there. So I'm going to let a little bit of room so it can breathe at the top so it's not filled all the way up. And then you're just going to take the lid, put that on there, and then you can maybe twist the lid off once a day or so just to let it breathe so too much pressure doesn't build in there. But this is actually the secret to champagne. This is how champagne works. They do a secondary fermentation in the bottle where they add a little bit more sugar and a little more champagne yeast inside the bottle, and you cork it, and then that's why that pressure builds as that secondary fermentation takes place, and you get the bubbles. So we're going to do that with both of them. Then we're also going to taste the kombucha to see what we've got going on, because this is where you can get really specific and brew kombucha the way you like it to taste. So at day 7, it'll still be a little more sweet. So it's really good. It's been kind of warm, so this is almost good. So I'll keep testing it. At day 7, it's generally a little more sweet tea-ish still. And then the further you go, the more vinegary it will get. So you just kind of find the range. I tend to really like day 9, 10, and 11. That's kind of the sweet spot for me and my tastes. But play around with that and see what you like. And that's really it. And then I'll show you inside of here, you see that your smaller SCOBY that we had grown previously is now starting to expand, and you can see that network kind of building out. And then after a couple of batches, you'll have, your SCOBY will grow to whatever size container you have. So the wider your container, the more round, the wider your SCOBY will get. And that's really everything. That's all of it to kombucha. So you're gonna do the same thing with the ones that you just did the secondary fermentation in. You're gonna check them every day, taste them, see when it gets to your preference, and go from there. And that's everything. So hopefully now, after watching this whole video, we've gone through the entire process together. You've seen everything from start to finish, from making your own SCOBY all the way up to doing a full batch. And now you have something like this where once all of this, so I'm going to use these same bottles. I got a case of these larger bottles. So when it's ready, when you find the spot where you like it, you bottle it up, put it in the refrigerator. That way you slow down and stop the fermentation process. And then you have your own kombucha to enjoy. And then you drain it out, you leave a little bit of your batch in there, and you fill it up and you start the next batch. And that's it. So now you have all the tools you need to be your own master kombucha brewer. So have fun, experiment, try new flavors, let me know what you come up with, and enjoy the process. Enjoy trying something new. Don't worry about it if it doesn't come out amazing. You know, there's no mistakes, you're just learning. So have fun, enjoy. Cheers.